This is We're Not Wizards. My name is Richard, and I shall be your host for this evening. And tonight is going to be called Richard's Feeling Very, Very Inferior with regards to his accomplishments in the board game industry compared to the two other gentlemen that he's got on the show with him. And I know why it's called that, and you will know why it's called that, and there's no way I'm going to be using that for the title, but I've got a very, very good reason for saying that in the first place, because I think I'm surrounded on both sides by greatness tonight, because we not only have the wonderful Jamey Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games, who needs no introduction, but he's the creator of Scythe, he's the creator of Viticulture, he's the creator of the soon-to-be out there Charterstone, which he's promised me to give me lots of information about, but not on this podcast. And join... So, good evening, Jamey.
Thank you for having me, Richard.
Oh, it's a pleasure, as always. And alongside him, on my virtual left, is the rather fantastic friend of the show, Mr. Peter Blenkharn. So, hello, Peter.
Hello again, for about the 10th time now, I think.
Hello. So, the first thing, what we thought was, we're just going to have a little discussion, a little chat. There's things going on both sides of the Atlantic at the moment with regards to kind of Peter's Sub Terra campaign, and also he's running a separate kind of head-scratching campaign for his new game, which is going to be called Newspeak. So, first of all, to both of you, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's good to kind of have you both back again to have a little chat, so I appreciate that. But Peter, do you want to start off by just telling us kind of how things have been since we spoke? Because we spoke maybe 3 months ago now, since the Sub Terra campaign kind of finished off.
Yeah, it's been good. There's been a lot of progress since then. We're now in the last couple of stages for sort of manufacture. We're looking at having the stuff on about this week, hopefully. So we've gone from the vague idea of a project to actually having some tangible boxes of cool stuff. Had the samples for the sort of collector's edition, all the sort of fancy extras this week, which was really exciting for the team. Crack them open and have a look at all the expansions and the graphic novel and all that cool stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, it's moving pretty quickly now, which is good. It's going to be a couple of months, hopefully, ahead of schedule, shipping out the stuff, which is always good news. But yeah, it's going really well. We've had loads of interest from retailers, been chatting to distributors and stuff as well. Even a couple of publishers in other language regions who want to pick it up, for their region as well, which is really cool.
That's pretty good.
And I was chatting today with the guys from Tabletopia about doing like premium content on there and doing like DLC for the Steam version. So yeah, there's been loads of interest in the game sort of outside of the Kickstarter campaign, and the campaign itself is going really well, which is great.
That's pretty good. And with regards to Newspeak, you've been hitting the marketing kind of trail hard and heavy before that game has even got a sniff on kind of Kickstarter. Yeah,
sure. So we came up with this game. Well, I say we came up with it. I actually picked it up at a regional convention up in Yorkshire from a kind of friend of a friend who wanted to just show me the game. So I was like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll play that. And was actually with my co-founder at the time, who was living nearby at the time. And we played through the game, looked at each other and went, this is fantastic. Like, this is such a cool game. And it had this kind of Mysterium-esque kind of feel to it, but with a completely different theme. This kind of like subterfuge, kind of spy kind of feel to it. We thought, this is really cool. So we chatted to the guy, we got him down to London, to the office to hash it out and kind of play test the games a bunch of times. And yeah, we loved it and took it on, and we went for this kind of absurdly obscure kind of near future dystopia feel. Anyone who's watched the Black Mirror series on Netflix will know exactly what I mean. A kind of very believable near future sort of technology's gone a bit wrong, like a kind of dystopia done by Google. That's probably the best way to describe it. So it's a bit cerebral. It's a bit odd. But after we kind of crafted this whole thing, we decided that if we just kind of put the game in front of people, it's quite a complicated series of things you'd have to explain. Like, you couldn't really write down what it is on the back of a box very easily, or at least not yet. So we decided the best way to approach it was to try and explain the game's world through the sort of general marketing-y bits and bobs that we were doing. And then once people have kind of understood what the world's about, they'll understand the game a lot more easily. So kind of extending that sort of thematic intro, you get the start of a Kickstarter video by, scale of months, I suppose. Trying to let people into what we're thinking, and hopefully that'll make the sort of complex parts of the game make more sense.
So, Jamey, it sounds to me like Peter's taken a couple of leaves out of your book and then kind of grown his own tree out of.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that, Peter. I mean, it's awesome that you. I've had that moment in my company too, where I saw a game from another designer and was like, oh, I love this as much as you do. I want to bring this in. I want to make this. That's cool. You've already had that moment. You're ahead of me.
So this the cat, because what's happened is if you're a member of the Newspeak Facebook group, all you see is posts saying, "Has anyone solved puzzle number 2? Has anyone got any headway with puzzle number 3?" And then there's comments saying, "I went out on Redacted and wore myself some Redacted, and then had myself a nice cup of Redacted, and then I went Redacted." Peter, what is this all about? I mean, this is taking marketing to a whole new level when you kind of...
Yeah, I mean, we basically spawned our own meme accidentally, which is I think a good thing. But yeah, it's been good fun. We did like a big giveaway thing. We're working with a few sort of friends in the industry and said, hey, like, we're going to do this big giveaway thing as a kind of I guess like a big free stuff thing. And we decided it'd be fun as an opportunity to kind of talk about Newspeak. So it's basically like an online raffle. So you get tickets by liking us on Twitter or tweeting about the giveaway or whatever. And then we were like, hey, why don't we give people some tickets for like solving some puzzles and then kind of immerse them in the Newspeak world, make this the kind of the spearhead of that kind of long drawn out explanation of the game world. And we did that. We hosted a few sort of weird and wonderful puzzles on the website. The first couple were like super easy, basically. Well, I mean, the second one was pretty hard, and then the third one was outrageously difficult. And people got really frustrated at it, but really enjoyed like getting stuck into these puzzles. And it kind of spawned this like jokey, Facebooky kind of thing in the group where everyone was talking about what they'd found and was taking the mick out of each other and saying, yeah, I found the answer, it's redacted.
Right.
If you put this redacted into redacted, it comes up with redacted. And it started off as a couple of silly comments and everyone just kind of picked it up. And then we started doing it as well and everyone was loving it.
It was like reading a rule book off a not very good board game, and you're sitting there halfway through, and then you have to reread it again, and it's still not making any sense. And then you have to reread it a third time, and then you go off and you play something else completely and totally.
Yeah, but no, it was really fun. It's been a great group so far, and yeah, I've been really surprised. We've got a couple hundred people in the group already, and no one's even played the game yet, which is kind of cool.
It's the community involvement. I think when I was talking to Mark from Epoch last week, and he was saying that the community was like a massive part of where, Epoch's now, I think it's at 52 or 53,000, so it's well funded and kind of then some, and he's obviously not gonna kind of cancel it now, but he had a lot of good things to say about Jamey. A lot of good. Well, does anyone have any bad things to say? I remember Christopher Bedell kind of asking, would there ever be a kind of a legacy game about annoying Jamey? But I don't think it could ever. I don't think.
Well, unlimited number of sessions, Like.
But Jamey, you must be kind of busy. I mean, how far away are we from kind of Charterstone kind of getting launched now?
Yeah, well, it's in production. So we started the the production for the non-printed components over a month ago, about 7 weeks ago. And then over the last 2 weeks, Panda's our manufacturer, they've been processing the print files. So Peter, I don't know if you do that. Do you usually start with the non-printed components because they take longer, and then start with the printed, or do you send everything to the publisher at the same time?
At least for Sub Terra, we've done it all at the same time.
Okay.
Although with previous ones, we kind of did like that kind of thing where we send some of the bits and bobs later on, and so they've got the bulk of the longer stuff beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that it ends up shaving off like sometimes it can shave off up to 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the component. Especially with miniatures. Miniatures are where it really slows down, because they can only make so many at a time. So that's really helped. Not with Charterstone, but with Scythe, the Wind Gambit, the expansion that we're doing. So we're like on the holiday crunch right now. We had this deadline where we're trying to get everything in before the holidays, not just with our stuff, but also a bunch of international partners. So it's weird to plan ahead for like Christmas sales in May, you know?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get involved in the kind of the retail kind of game and the manufacturing game, isn't it? I mean, you've got to, you're kind of planning ahead. I mean, I deal with guys that are sell on the marketplaces like Amazon and eBay, and they're already thinking strategy for Christmas time, because they've got to get stuff kind of nailed down kind of just now. So, but you've dropped in about the expansion for Scythe, so do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that quickly?
Yeah, so this was a new experience for me too. So Scythe has been out since we sent out the Kickstarter copies about a year ago in June of 2016. And in December, on the Scythe Facebook group, there's a fan had made a fan expansion, and he had written the rules. He had actually play tested it, so it wasn't just Peter. I'm sure you've heard this from some people. They have it like an idea, and they throw an idea at you, and they want you to run with it. But this guy actually put in the work of actually designing something and trying it and testing it, which really impressed me. And I thought he had a really cool idea too, which was to add a new type of unit to Scythe, these airships. And so I ended up corresponding with him. He's a guy named Kai. He's over in Germany. And I ended up bringing in an expansion idea that I had. So it's kind of 2 different modules in the same box. And it was really cool to work with a co-designer on this expansion. That's the first time I've had a real true co-designer on anything Scythe related.
Because looking at this, you've got your airship module, which is your Kai stuff, and then you've brought in resolution modules. Was that your 2 cents, I guess? Yeah,
that was my 2 cents. I ended up doing a lot of development on the airships from the original idea to the final version. But yeah, the original idea I brought in was these resolution modules, which change the end game trigger of the game. Normally, the end game trigger is when someone places their 6th star, the game immediately ends. And now there are 8 different, or total of 9. You have the original and then 8 new ways for the game to end. And it's usually most of them aren't just like a new thing that happens at the very end. Most of them are kind of, they feel a little bit like scenarios where like a one rule is a little bit different that impacts the entire game. So yeah, it adds a little bit of variability to Scythe.
Was that based on feedback that you'd had, or was that based on you kind of continuing to toy about with the kind of the mechanics?
You know, I read a lot of stuff about Scythe in the forums or reviews and things like that, and I can't even remember at this point like where the idea originally came from, but I'm sure an influence was that some people feel that the end of the game of Scythe is a little abrupt, because once you place that 6th star, the game just instantly ends. Which I felt was important for the game itself. I think there needs to be a compelling reason for someone to end the game, and if they put that final star down and then other stuff continues to happen, there's less of a reason to actually put that star down. So while I like that mechanism, I continue to think it's a good mechanism. I think that spark of people saying, hey, is there another way, kind of inspired me to think of 8 other ways that the game can end.
So it's like the tractors come along to you and say, give me one solution. And it's like, no, I'll give you the Spanish Inquisition version. I'll give you. We've got 8 solutions.
Yeah.
I take it you've obviously had that kind of out playtesting into people, and has Has the feedback been quite strong on it then? Well, I think it must be if you're going to be putting it out there to everybody.
Yeah, fortunately, we went through. I did my normal thing, which is, and actually, Peter, I'm curious to hear about how your steps for this. But I did local playtesting for a while, and then once I thought it was ready, I sent it out to blind playtesters, and I did 3 big waves of blind playtesting. And really, I love blind playtesting because I just learned so much. And looking back on it in like the 3rd wave, everything is so obvious at that point. I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of this before? Where we were like stumbling through parts of the first 2 waves. Peter, what's your method for playtesting? Do you do local and then blind? What's your...
It's kind of a mix, to be honest. I mean, the stuff we've done for Newspeak is probably the most relevant, I guess, at this point. Like we've done loads of in-house stuff. So there's about 4 or 5 of us in the office at the moment who've been kind of doing about a session a day. Just kind of going through the sort of nuts and bolts of the first few drafts. And then we've been doing quite a lot of sessions with an organisation called Playtest UK, who organise meetups across the country and do specifically just playtesting sessions of anyone's games that they bring along. So one of my guys has been going off to the regular London one each week, with a sort of new set of people each time and doing blind or non-blind testing each time, see what they're kind of developing it as they go along. Which has been pretty cool. And next step's probably going to be to take it to one of the regional conventions where the same organisation runs a kind of big open version of the same thing where, they'll have like a table with our game or something, tables with other guys' games. And then members of the kind of convention will come up and, fill the seats and be kind of table upon table of blind play testers, which has been really, really valuable in the past. But yeah, so, I mean, conventions have been probably the biggest resource for us. For all our games, actually. The kind of smaller regional ones have been really good for kind of letting people know how the game works without setting expectations. Right. People are kind of feeling that when you're giving them that opportunity at a local convention, you're still kind of in the works, and you're not kind of using up that big national convention capital, but yeah, it's worked really well for us.
That's great.
I'm sorry,
Richard,
I'm just listening. No, I'm just listening because it's like, I'm like at the cocktail party and I'm saying, Peter, meet Jamey. And I'm thinking I've got something in common with both of you because we've got board games, but at the moment, you're talking English, but I'm not sure I understand exactly kind of what's kind of going on. No, yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming more and more clear that the playtesting side of things is becoming so much more important even before you even think about kind of launching the campaign in case somebody comes in and kind of like breaks the game itself. Jamey, have you, I mean, with people writing the expansions, is that kind of woken up kind of Scythe again, or did you have kind of more expansions kind of planned for the future?
With like the first expansion to Scythe,
yeah,
I definitely had that. I had the roots of that in mind when I designed the base game, but I didn't really sit down and design the expansions, that expansion, until the game had been released, or the game was in production at the time. But that was different with the next expansion. Usually with expansions, after I spend so much time on a game, I need a decent break from it.
Yeah.
And usually I've put what I think are all of my good ideas into the core game. I generally don't leave stuff out. If I leave stuff out, it's for a reason. It's because it wasn't working, or it wasn't good, or it wasn't fun. Mm-hmm. So usually it does help. I need some sort of a spark, and often I think it is external, whether it's from reviewers or forums, or in this case, another designer to bring it back to life and make me want to return to it.
That must have kind of, you must have been kind of quite touched when somebody actually approached you and says, I'm not only going to tell you, listen, you should be making people move 5 squares instead of 4 squares. It's like they've gone ahead and actually designed mechanics and gone down the design route themselves. I mean, you must have been, oh, thanks for that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. That really impressed me off the bat. And there have been a few people who have done those little fan expansions, and not all of them have piqued my interest like that one did, but they all impressed me that people would take that time to take an idea, which is very easy to have. Ideas, it's so easy to have. You could come up with a dozen right now if we brainstorm in the next 5 minutes, but to actually act on it and bring it to the table with your friends and face rejection and all that, that's pretty cool that he did that.
especially if it's like Scythe, because I mean, Scythe is now, very, very well known in the kind of the board game circles, and even externally. I mean, you've got kind of video game websites and things like that kind of starting to go into the board game scene and covering kind of games like Scythe as well. So it's kind of, everybody is aware of it, and it's in some ways it's much loved IP. So I can imagine if you're going in and saying, "Look, I've got Jamey Stegmaier stuff, and I'm just going to try and improve it." I can imagine folks sitting down at the table going, "Just put your mechs on the table. You're next." and be quiet. Let's just put that away with your crayons and your kind of your A4. But right. You did the kind of same thing with Viticulture, because when Viticulture came out, you then had like the Tuscany expansion, and then you had a kind of a combination, if I'm correct, with the Viticulture Essentials kind of edition, which is one of my favourite games. I like Viticulture more than I like Scythe. I'm going to say that publicly and on record, because I'm a man of a very simple brain, and I find wine is much more palatable for me than robots and resource management and stuff like that. So, but no, as I say, you've kind of you've done that again with Charterstone. And as I say, I'm not expecting you to say anything. I'm expecting you to say, like, wait until the games come out and you can experience it like everybody else is. You've started to tease out little tiny snippets of art. Have you ever been in a situation where you're bursting to tell kind of people what's actually going to be in the box, or have you had to keep controlled and calm about what you're letting kind of out there?
Well, yeah, I would say maybe about 2 months ago, I realized that I had that bursting desire, I guess, to share more behind the scenes than I was saying about it. And so for the last maybe month or two, I think it's been 2 months, on the Charterstone Facebook group. And actually, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what Charterstone is, the reason that it's secretive is that it's a legacy game, and pretty much everything in the box is a spoiler. So I wanted people to have the experience of opening the box and just starting to play, and not even opening that box before they sit down to play for the first time. That was my original intention. And so over the last few months, I've been writing these weekly design diary entries about the game, and I really, really enjoyed that. I love to write that behind the scenes stuff. I love to see the questions that pop up, and I can't answer all the questions that people ask, but people have been pretty understanding and respectful of that. Because they know what the game is, they know it's a legacy game, and that there's a lot of secret stuff in it. But I've ended up exposing a little bit more than I thought I would, but I think it's been good. I think it's been good for people to see that, especially since a lot of these people are paying money, like they're pre-ordering it from their local retailer. They want to know that
exactly
what their investment is going into. Yeah. Have you done that, Peter? Have you done design diaries?
Yeah, we did. I did some brief ones for Statecraft, and I did Tim, the designer of Sub Terra, did some really good ones actually for Sub Terra. And yeah, I mean, it did help that it wasn't a legacy game, so we couldn't spoil too much of it. But yeah, one thing that was really good about it, I think we didn't actually think would happen, was it ended up kind of sparking more and more ideas. Like kind of putting pen to paper, or figuratively speaking, I guess, and like writing down what those thoughts were and kind of in what order they came, and what those changes were that we made kind of previously, kind of with that sort of retrospect, we're able to make even more kind of moves forward, which was kind of cool. Like, talking about the sort of ethos that we had when we were developing the game, then kind of applying that same logic to when we were doing art direction, and then the next step being the Kickstarter campaign. So kind of, writing the sort of last week's events into the design diary, and then thinking, that's a good way of doing that thing, or that's not a good way of doing that thing. How can we learn from that and move to next week?
Right.
Which is a really cool experience actually. I think it was really useful for both Tim and myself to kind of be doing that kind of while we were sort of moving through the project, right. Kind of learning from ourselves, while we were going through it.
That's really cool. The act of writing it down actually sparked some other ideas. And it sounds like you were doing it while the game was still pliable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We we kind of like, I mean, to be fair, we started, after we'd done the sort of first draft of the game. But I mean, there weren't that many changes that were made sort of, the kind of the system of the game between when we first picked it up and the actual final finished product. But it was a lot of things that influenced the presentation of the game, the graphic design, the illustration, and those kind of final sort of tightening of the bolts. That I think had we not done that, it wouldn't have had quite as much finesse as I think it does have. It was kind of those kind of deep, thoughtful conversations that we had, over Skype sometimes, where we were talking, like, I think we had like an argument between like me, Tim, and the graphic designer Zach, where we were like they were having like a really heated discussion of the exact placement of like an icon on a component, and it went on for like an hour, where we were like all like sort of battling our corners and being like, I really think that this is the thing we're trying to get to, and because of that it should be like this. And at the end of it, we came to a consensus, and it was really good that we'd actually had that kind of conversation, because I think had we not started to write down this process, we probably wouldn't have done that in the first place. Kind of really critiquing our own work and being sort of critical of the kind of things the assumptions we've made. It really helped us, like when we were sort of in the flow of work, to kind of critique things as we were going along, and I think that helped to improve things a lot.
That's awesome.
Is is it a strict? Because it sounds like, see, in terms of your next game coming out, you're both taking the kind of the complete opposites in terms of how you're pushing it out to how you're pushing it out to market. Peter is with Newspeak. There's massive involvement, a lot of kind of community. People are getting involved in the game, a lot of play testing. And on Jamey's side, you're almost relying on the strength of what you've done before and almost silently marketing it. I mean, have you had pressure because of the company and your previous productions? Has there been pressure? Had you had to approach it differently to market kind of Charterstone? Have you had it to do more on the success of Stegmaier as opposed to this is what you're actually getting?
Well, in a way, and so what you're referencing there is that we're not going to Kickstarter on it, I believe. Is that what
you're not going to Kickstarter, but also you're not, it must be difficult for you it must be a different approach to market the game in the first place.
Right. Yeah, it is a bit different. I mean, we can still, like any game, we can show some art. I can put the rulebook out there, things like that. Mm-hmm. We have a video that should go out in about 2 weeks. We got a movie trailer style video for the game. Mm-hmm. But the biggest change really is that whereas for a Kickstarter project, my clients, my consumers, my customers were individual people, whereas for my customers for Charterstone are distributors. So even though like I'm still supporting the end consumer, the people who I'm selling it to are only distributors. I'm not doing any direct pre-orders. And so that definitely changed my marketing tactics a little bit, because I was, instead of convincing like one person that the game was either right or wrong for them, I'm convincing a distributor if they want 500, 1,000, or 2,000 copies of the game. Which is, a very different pitch, and they need a lot of data to make that decision, and they need to talk to retailers who need to talk to their customers. So it was a very different process, and it really lasted about 4 or 5 months to get all that data in, so that I had a reasonable estimate of how many copies of this game to make, and how many, with knowledge of how many I would actually sell. So we ended up going with a pretty big print run. I think it'll be a print run of, or it is, and not maybe, it'll be a print run of 56,000 copies, and most of them are pre-committed to distributors, which eliminates the risk for me, where I know that I have these, I know I can sell these.
That's incredible, because Mechs vs. Minions was 30,000 in the first run, and the second run was another 30,000. So
that's true. But theirs was a shot in the dark. Like, if they had gone to distributors in advance, I bet they could have easily... And they didn't go to distributors at all.
No.
But if they had done that... and I imagine, Peter, too, with the way your company has grown, if you went to a distributor tomorrow on your next game and said, hey, how many of this do you want? They would probably be able to give you a reasonable idea, and it would probably be a pretty good number. So I've really been happy with those communications with distributors.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've literally just like recently been talking to Estevium, the big distributor in the UK, which I imagine you probably met before. And yeah, it's definitely been, like you said, a very different sort of experience. Like it's a much more kind of methodical, thought out process, rather than the kind of sort of dizzying highs of sort of Kickstarter. But yeah, it's been really interesting, I think, probably for the same reasons. Just kind of working out what that, I mean, for us, it's, the first time we're doing that, kind of working out what the kind of needs and desires are for retailers and distributors that are, different from individual, consumers. Things that people, think of all the time, like the box size, kind of the impact on a shelf versus the impact of a graphic on Kickstarter. It might be subtly different. Or just, simple things like, writing on a box might not really matter when it's on a Kickstarter because everything's, blown up to huge sizes on your screen, or it's kind of written out in sort of plain text. But, if you can't actually read it on the shelf, then it's unlikely someone's going to pick it up, sort of have a look at it in your shop. So yeah, I think it's definitely been an informative process that, it's been a privilege that we've had that. And I think it's definitely interesting for newcomers to the industry, I think, to kind of know what that is before they get into it, kind of so they can, preempt the strategy so that it kind of fits both locks of the kind of Kickstarter and sort of retail distribution chain.
Right.
Has it been like another kind of big learning curve for you then, Jamey? I mean...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time. It very much has been. Like, for example, one of the things I learned was how much... This was when the Scythe expansion came out, Invaders from Afar, the first one. I didn't set a release date. I just was thinking, okay, when the game gets to stores, I want them to immediately just start to sell them to customers. I don't want them to artificially hold it back. But different stores get the game at different times, even within the U.S. Like, distributors get them at different times, retailers get them at different times. And I found out that the distributors and retailers get kind of upset if one store has the game, even it has a new release a few days ahead of them. Yeah. And so I kind of learned the value of putting a release date out there, which we actually do tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday. Tomorrow is the release of Between Two Cities Capitals. So that's the first time. That's an expansion of Between Two Cities, and that's the first time that I've set a release date for something, even though we've been shipping this product to distributors over the last month. So we built in this big buffer to make sure that everybody could actually have it and stores could actually have it in time for the release date. And so far I haven't heard any complaints. So I assume maybe I'll hear some tomorrow if somebody just happened to get theirs late. But I think that has worked out a lot better.
It's kind of like an exciting time. It's one of these weird things. It's strange to be kind of, you're basically seen as being at the top of your game. I mean, because you're quite well known. And Peter, at the same time, has grabbed an awful lot of success recently with the Sub Terra campaign he's created a name for inside the box board games. But it's interesting that you've both still got things to learn when it comes to maybe looking at the next step, which is the kind of the retail thing, which seems to be an entirely different kind of game altogether. Peter, I take it Newspeak's going to be in Kickstarter, is it?
We decided to do that. I mean, interestingly, before we kind of committed to sort of a plan for Newspeak, we read Jamey's article about his sort of plans for Charterstone, and it was really illuminating because I think everyone had kind of taken it for granted that everyone that had started on the kind of Kickstarter track would always stay there. But it's definitely interesting sort of seeing Jamey's logic on, obviously it is a different challenge now that you're a well-established brand and you've got those contacts with distributors and retailers already, that actually it does make sense for you to do the sort of plan that you've done for Charterstone. And for smaller publishers to use the Kickstarter route, and this is kind of, both have their advantages and disadvantages, and it's kind of best for everyone to kind of evaluate their situation. I know in some of the British publishers that I'm friendly with, some of them have never done Kickstarter and they're still quite small. Some of them are very big and do use Kickstarter. And it's interesting to see, it's not really a kind of small companies do Kickstarter, big companies don't thing. It's quite complex, depending on what kind of game it is, what the retail demand for it is, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, with Newspeak, we're going to go Kickstarter. We decided that's the best thing for the project. Mainly, as I said, because honestly, it's a weird game. It's like, realistically, it's an unusual game. The kind of, the mechanical style of it is similar to a kind of like, let's say like a deeper version of Mysterium is probably the closest thing to it. It's that kind of game. But it's still quite weird. The theme is not that, it's not that normal, for the board game scene. I know, obviously, Jamey, you did Euphoria. I'm sure you came across the kind of same sort of thing. It's not the classic sort of board game theme, so you have to kind of try the extra bit of effort to make sure people understand what it's about and how that, relates to the sort of the game's decision-making processes. But yeah, we decided this kind of long run-up and this sort of community aspect of Kickstarter was a good way to help people understand and kind of for them to help each other understand what's going on with it. But yeah. So it's probably going to be Kickstarter with thinking January 2018. So similar sort of time to Sub Terra. But who knows? Could be sooner, could be later. We don't know at this point.
I'm going to commit to a date, and then I'm going to tell you it's not a date at all.
Yeah.
Of course, Peter will become... I'm going to ask Peter. No, me and Peter, last time when Peter did Sub Terra, Peter would come on. I think it was every week? Every 10 days?
Yeah, something like that.
Have a chat.
Good few times.
Yeah, we kind of launched a series of kind of mini podcast episodes, which birthed the kind of the quick start on the Kickstart.
Yeah.
Which we've done quite a few, which was, we spoke to Peter about how the campaign was going, and I think most of it was, oh my goodness, it's been so busy. What's going on? I don't know what to do next. So it was quite, it was quite interesting, but we're hoping, we've already spoken about running it again. And and it'll be interesting and see what the audience is going to be like that instead. And I don't know, we might turn it into a game, Peter. We might do something kind of.
Don't give me too many ideas.
I mean, I'm still looking for. I'm still hoping to get my bearded meeple stickers, which you promised from the last.
I did promise them. I did.
Are they there?
You'll have something in your inbox at some point.
Oh, awesome. That's what we want. That's absolutely fantastic. One of the, I guess, with Jamey, with you moving kind of away for Kickstarter, is this just a kind of a stepping outside and seeing what else is out there, or are you firmly committed to kind of trying to break away from Kickstarter completely now?
Well, I mean, it's not a firm commitment either way, but my last Kickstarter was Scythe in November of 2015, and so we're working towards about 2 years without anything of ours being on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. So I expect that will continue. I don't foresee that changing at any point in the future. And really, as Peter alluded to, it is not a slight on Kickstarter or anyone who uses Kickstarter. I still love the platform. I still write about it twice a week. I'm fascinated by it, but it just for various reasons, some related to fulfillment, some related to my time and my like emotional state. I got to the point where it just wasn't a good fit for me or Stegmaier anymore.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess this will give you kind of more control. And I mean, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You've got 56,000 copies going out there of a game that, let's be honest, nobody's actually really seen. It'd be different if it was, I mean, when the Mechs versus Minions came up, there was a buzz about it, and Riot Games, being Riot Games, were able to create a buzz. I mean, they've created a multi-million-dollar kind of platform through the League of Legends, so they were able to do it. But I mean, it's a big testament to you, the fact that there are people that are scouring how they can pre-order Charterstone without actually knowing what they could get. It could just be a t-shirt inside with you going, surprise, it's your Jamey Stegmaier Charterstone t-shirt. And that's not going to happen, though, is it? That'd be quite funny.
I did an unboxing video. Most of my posts for like the first month of Design Diaries were pretty kind of just fun, just having a good time. And, they culminated in an unboxing where I showed the box, I put the box down, and then I pretended to lift something out of the box, and it was my cat.
Yeah, I saw that video. That was great.
And I thought this was funny. Of course, I think anything with my cats is amusing. But there were a few people who pointed out, and at the time I was a little annoyed by it, but I think they actually had a good point that I hadn't really shown, like you said, I hadn't really shown them anything substantial. And at that point, they felt like they were just being toyed with, which wasn't my intention. I was just having fun. But that was where I was like, okay, I need to put the rule book out there so people can see it. You don't have to, like, no one has to read it. You don't have to spoil that for yourself.
Yeah.
But at least it'll be out there so they can see that there is an actual game here and not an empty box with a cat in it.
I think it's interesting that there will be people who will probably not, just like Pandemic Legacy, as we've said multiple times before, that you can still quite happily go and look for Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and not really see many spoilers about the actual game itself, because if it was Pandemic Legacy, the video game, I mean, the cellophane wouldn't have had enough time to come off the box before there was like a video about it. But I mean, I've seen that. As I say, I've gone back to Mechs vs Minions, and only mentioning that because me and Colin have kind of started playing it, and it's the fact that you have to they've kept it layered, and you have to open up levels as you delve deeper into it. But at the same time, there's this, everybody's heard of this box with this axe kind of sticking out the top. But again, I've not seen anybody, you want to know about Mechs vs Minions, this is what's in the box. People have kept it quite to themselves. Yeah. And I can see that happening with Charterstone. I know there's going to be discussions about it, and there's going to be discussions about the rules, but I think we'll still see the great board gaming community coming together as it does, and not wanting to spoil the game, because they believe, opening a board game it's like a little miniature Christmas Day, and they're not wanting to kind of spoil it for kind of anyone else.
I bet there are people there. I bet there are maybe a number of Sub Terra backers who have tried to avoid looking through all this stuff because they want that moment of seeing the tiles for the first time when they open the box and not on a digital rulebook.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Well, that's me as well. That's definitely me. Of course, Jamey, you're opening yourself for internet hate that you will guaranteed get one smart ass, and it'll probably be me, who will email you on a forum and say, I've opened up Charterstone and there's no cat.
Well, you'll have to see if there is any cats.
Oh, here we go. It's just a matter of time before we could break him down. So Charterstone is a game about cats in the box. So if there's no cats, you know who to complain to. Not me. Jamey's email address will be in the show notes. I mean, between the two of you with your hectic, busy schedules, I'm not even able to talk. It's very hot in here tonight. I have no idea why. Have you had chances to play anything yourselves at all? Peter, have you managed to get anything to the table yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of for a while we weren't really playing anything other than endlessly playtesting our own stuff, and then we realised that we're not going to be able to innovate new stuff if we're not constantly playing other people's games and kind of learning from what they've done well. So we decided that what we do for Newspeak is basically all the games that we thought we'd kind of taken an inspiration from. We just get all those in a big pile and just work our way through them. So kind of once a week we've been kind of sitting down, cracking out a few games in a row. And kind of going through all the different things that we think might be helpful to us to learn from, and then ones that are just for fun. So we've been playing Mechs vs Minions as well, actually, just for fun.
I know. I'm sorry. It's not like this show's. You're not going to get a thing at the beginning saying.
Sponsored by Riot Games.
Don't say that. That'd be. I'm not even going to say that would be nice because it's not going to happen. They won't respond. They won't respond to my emails anyway, or me standing outside their office and asking them if they'll come on the show. So I'll get a better sponsor for the show. We don't need you. That's a joke, Riot Games, by the way. I've never emailed you or stood outside your office. And if you do want to come into the show, you're more than welcome. Just sometimes I just open my mouth and it's like I'm just changing feet. What about you, Jamey? Have you been playing anything of late yourself? Yeah.
I try to play a bunch of games. I host a weekly game night, and we had Saturday game day, and I do. I'm usually having like one campaign going at a time. So the campaign game I'm doing right now is Near and Far, which I'm really, really loving. At my game night last week, I played Great Western Trail, which I've played many times at this point. And then I learned 3 new games at the game day on Saturday. I played 4 games for the first time. Barony, Fields of Arl, which I should have played a long time ago because it's wonderful. And a smaller game from Stronghold called Frog Riders, which was light and fun and cute. But Fields of Arl was the standout. And I played Between Two Cities Capitals for the first time in like the final production version, which I always like doing. And I knew it was going to be good because I like it's our game, but I'm really happy with how it came out.
It's like a good chef sitting down and sampling his own cooking and going, "Yeah, I know this sauce is good. Just give me some more of them fries. Thanks very much." Are either of you kind of excited? Is there anything that's been announced that's coming out that you guys are kind of excited about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. I got really excited like a giddy schoolchild on the news about Pandemic Legacy Season 2. I really enjoyed the first season, and like I really like what they did with it, where the kind of the entry points that whole sort of series of stuff was kind of familiar Pandemic feel with this kind of new exciting legacy sort of component to it, and then with Season 2 they've gone like 70 years forward with a brand new art style and a completely crazy dystopian thing going on, and I was like, this is fantastic. Like it's kind of taken that whole experience and kind of taken it one step further, and kind of like not just making new interesting product, but kind of progressing the whole story arc of the game and giving it a kind of lease of new life rather than just plastering on a few new mechanics or something. I'm really excited to see how that turns out.
What about you, Jamie? Is there anything that's kind of piqued your interest at all?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Pandemic Legacy Season 2. In terms of campaign games, there's that one. There's the First Martians and Seventh Continent are the 3 campaign games I'm really looking forward to, and playing through Charterstone. And then I have Palaces of Mad King Ludwig that I'm really looking forward to. I think there was one other one. The Expanse. I love the Expanse novel series and the TV show, and there's a game coming out, I think, very, very soon about that one. Have you guys heard of The Expanse?
Yeah. Is it on Netflix?
It's it's sci-fi, I think. In the US it's sci-fi.
Yeah.
Everybody's frantically Googling The Expanse board game.
It's by Jeff Engelstein, who does the Ludology podcast.
All right.
And I've heard that he's structured it off of Twilight Struggle, but with 4 players instead of 2.
Interesting.
So I'm pretty fascinated to see what he does with that.
Oh, here it is. It looks interesting. That's kind of cool. For myself, Wasteland Express Delivery Service is one that I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Only because they did the beautiful people at Pandasaurus Games, and there's a reason I'll be calling them beautiful, and you shall all learn why, is that they did a campaign for Dinosaur Island.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And it was basically, it's Jurassic Park, but it looks fantastic, and I went, oh, okay. And then what happened was that I couldn't get Wasteland Express Delivery Service because it was basically going to cost double the price of the game to get it shipped to the UK. Ooh. And then I got an email in my inbox saying, we can do Wasteland Express Delivery Service, but include it as part of your package for Dinosaur Island. And I squealed.
That's great.
Because I've seen the unboxing now. I've not seen any. I've not actually looked at any of the gameplay. I'm trying to keep it for myself. But the whole premise of it, and the fact it's John Gilmour as well, I'm very, very interested to see what he is going to do. So that's one that I'm very, very interested in. There's this beardy chap who released. There's a game that's coming my way which is about caving and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember the name. It's something. It's like French for potato.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
No, it's Sub Terra. So I'm looking for. I am the guy that hasn't looked at anything, so I'm interested to see how that kind of plays. Because friend of the show, Rory Summers, he's been playing that quite a bit, and he just keeps waxing lyrical and saying, "Yeah, I lost 2 people, I got 3 people returned," and I'm just screaming at Facebook, going, "Rory, what are you talking about?" So I'll be waiting for that to kind of kick in. James Hudson, Grim Forest, that looks
super nice.
It does look super nice, and James was on the show, and he is super nice as well, but he's sharp as a tack. And I've been on the Board Game Spotlight Facebook group that he runs, and he's been putting out a lot of kind of information on that, which is kind of good. Jamey, you mentioned quickly that you're going to be sitting down and playing through Charterstone. Have you played a full game of it or going through it yourself? Are you just looking forward to kind of sitting down and playing it as a player as opposed to, like, I guess, a tester?
Well, Charterstone was a weird one to test for me. I was able to play it for gameplay, but not really play it for the campaign as much, because I know all the secrets. I can't experience it as a true player will. So all of the full campaign playtesting was done by blind playtesters, reporting data and anecdotal evidence and videos to me, so I could learn from it. So no, I haven't sat down with friends and played the campaign from game 1 to game 12. So I'll still know everything that's happening, but I'll be kind of nervously watching my friends experience that too.
Yeah. But it'll be like the first time you see, it was be like the first time my son watched, like, Star Wars. I'll be living vicariously through his reactions to what's going on in the film and kind of enjoy it kind of that way, I guess.
Yeah.
I know. Right, I'm going to hand this over to Peter now, because Peter, I'm just going to say, do you have any questions that you have for Jamey? Because I'm aware I keep butting in on this conversation, going, guys, your drink's okay? Do you want some dip? Do you want some nachos? Is there anything you want to ask Jamey?
Actually, yeah. So I just before we came on, I was chatting to the guys in the office about they're not still in the office. I'm not working them that hard. But I was chatting to the guys about that we're going to be coming on and maybe questions that they had for you. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting that came out of that was one of the guys asked why it is that you kind of centered the brand of Stegmaier games around Jamey Stegmaier. You're very present in all the Facebook groups you've got for the games. Obviously on the Kickstarter campaigns you run your amazing blog. You've written the book, which I've read. I will hold my hand up and say I am a disciple of the book.
Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, like it seems like to a lot of people, it seems like a counterintuitive thing to do, to kind of be that one linchpin in a business. And I guess just kind of wanted to hear your response. Like, what do you think the advantage it is, or why do you personally like being that kind of the central persona for the company?
That's a good question. Yeah, I wrote about I wrote about this last week in a blog entry, because I think there are pros and cons to being the face of a company in the way that I am. Like if I do something good, it can resonate with a lot of people. But if I have a bad day and that comes out on social media in some way, that can hurt the company instead of just me as a person. So, I mean, that's been kind of on my mind a lot recently as to what that means. I think the reason it is the way it is that it really goes back to the original reason why I got into Kickstarter, which was I kind of cherished the opportunity to connect one-on-one with people who shared my passion for something. And so I've tried to continue that, even as I moved off Kickstarter, I've tried to continue to have that type of presence with people and connect with people one-on-one about my games or other games too. Like I do a YouTube channel about other games that I play and game design. So that's the good side of it, that personal connection. I really enjoy that. Despite being a pretty big introvert online, I like those interactions quite a bit. But I think like I said, kind of there's a darker side to having that face, and I've been trying to examine that recently and try to decentralize a little bit more and delegate a little bit more, and yeah, I think it's something I've been thinking about lately. I don't have a great answer because I've been thinking about it and trying to process it and trying to figure out what that means. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really interesting to hear how you kind of like you're thinking about it, because I think I get the impression that kind of due to the massive growth of your company over the last few years, and like how that's kind of changed your perspective on like you said before about running Kickstarter campaigns. It's kind of like a lot of that kind of emotional capital that you've got to kind of put into running it, and obviously the size the Scythe campaign is absolutely enormous. The kind of you need to be there, always present, and it does take a lot of effort. But kind of it's interesting to see how you're approaching that kind of same growth, and sort of how you're reacting to it. I mean, we kind of hit the same, well, not the same problem, but kind of in a similar sense when we went from me in my bedroom to an office with a few guys kind of working around me, which is pretty crazy, pretty fast. And how originally it was me doing everything, and now I'm like having to kind of extract some of the stuff out of my brain and kind of like let people in on it, while still kind of being that central role in the company. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear your thoughts on it.
Did you have any key moments in terms of that extraction? Because that's something that's probably like the hardest thing for me. If I've been doing something for so long and it is in my head or in my files, to be able to transfer that to someone else. Have you had any moments of epiphanies where that made it a lot easier for you to do that for a specific element of something that you did for a long time that you then transferred to somebody else?
I mean, it definitely hasn't been easy. I've definitely got no magic wand for it, but I think particularly with Newspeak, the point when I was like, right, okay, we're got to start, full steam ahead on development with this project. At that point, I decided that I should bring someone on to help me do what I'm doing. A guy called Anthony, who was an intern for me for a while, and I decided that would be like a good way to kind of make a clean break with the sort of development and kind of, I want to say, like micromanagement of the individual project.
Okay.
So although it was kind of like a ripping the plaster off moment, and there's been a few times when he's kind of been like, yeah, Peter, you're looming over me and like, just watching me work at this point. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, I'm just going to go back to my desk. Just because, like, I'm sure the same, you really want to be involved in everything because it's so exciting a lot of the time. And it's interesting. But yeah, I think it's having kind of starts of new projects has been quite a good way to, restructure what I've been doing according to, new members of the team or new resources or whatever else. Within projects, it's been a lot harder. So I think, doing stuff with Sub Terra, obviously, we had that team very well established before everything went crazy. So kind of making sure I'm actually writing things down rather than just keeping them in my head, and then, making sure that other people got access to, there's files and notes and stuff. But yeah, I think the kind of one thing that's come out of it is make sure you write absolutely everything down. Because if at some point things do go crazy and suddenly you're really successful, like yourself, and you have all this work to do and you can't possibly do it yourself, then you're going to need someone else to help you. And it's no use if you haven't written it down. It's impossible to just keep everything in your head and just explain it as and when. They're going to need access to it. So yeah, I guess.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the second tip about writing everything down. I do try to do that, but the first tip in particular is that's one I'll have to think on, because I really like that idea of when you start a new project that's a much easier, or maybe not much, but easier time to transition than when you're in the middle of something you're already immersed in it. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah. It
seems like a kind of a good moment to be reflective. Like, what did we do last time that we don't want to do this time, or vice versa. And kind of, like, hey, well, this worked really well last time, let's do that again. And hey, that didn't work, let's try something new. Okay, there's a new member of the team. Like, that's a great opportunity to do that. But yeah, I think that's been a really good learning experience. Particularly as a kind of, like, it sounds weird saying it, but kind of as a managing role, I guess. Like, I still can't get my head around that, but yeah, like kind of working out what kind of, what system works, what kind of arrangement, what kind of, combination of people and things works best, for a given project or for anything in general.
Thank you.
That's just... I can't say anything else to add that. I'll just sound like an idiot. I'm aware that Jamey is running to a schedule today because unlike myself and Peter... Well, Peter's probably still doing work anyway. It's just me that's the work-shy fop. Jamey has got other things he needs to be cracking on with, like, you know, a game to get out there, maybe. So I was gonna I think this is a good time to obviously wrap up proceedings. I did tweet out that I would be speaking to Jamey tonight. Obviously, Peter kind of came in at the last minute, so I really got to thank him for pitching up at the last minute. As I say, gentlemen, I'm aware time is short, so if people want to track down where they can find you on the internet, interwebs, where is the best place to find you, Mr. Blenkharn?
Probably the best place to find me is on Facebook, though I don't think adding me as a friend, like, literally 1,000 times would be a good idea. So, yeah, I mean, Twitter, the ITB Board Games, if you want to talk to me about, like, businessy stuff, game design stuff, whatever, my email's, like, publicly available. It's contact@ITBBoardGames, go straight to me. We've got, like, a thing on the website for game submissions, and there's, like, a bunch of different, like, playtesting stuff and that kind of thing, as well on the website, which is just itbboardgames.com.
And the same for yourself, Jamey. If people want to find you, if you know, don't be silly. Of course, you know how to find Jamey, but just to the last 0.5% that maybe aren't aware, where's the best place to find you on the internet?
Stegmaier Games anywhere. So there's Stegmaier Games on Twitter, Stegmaier Games on Facebook, or stegmaiergames.com. And my contact information is all over that stuff. And yeah, that's the best way.
And we'll put, I've got both your details from previous shows, so I'll just copy and paste the show notes from the previous shows because obviously I'm really working hard tonight. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, just go to Google, search for We're Not Wizards, and you will find us across many forums, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you search us on Redbubble, you can actually now buy a T-shirt, for goodness sake, or a coffee cup, because we are absolutely shameless.
Can we get like a king-size double bed spread? Like,
you can get
all the
a
options.
Cushion. You can get, and if you don't see something and you want us to do it for you, just ask, and we're quite happy at all. We're going to do branded board game boxes next, just with the big We're Not Wizard logo on the front. Maybe not on the front, but maybe one day on the back. We shall see. If you have liked what you've heard tonight, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, and we always appreciate a review. I usually do my joke about don't leave us a 10 because that'll make us big-headed, but guys, you've been listening to Pure Gold from, two of the best in the industry tonight, so if you don't give us a 10, what is wrong with you? Basically. You can find us on Acast, you can find us on Stitcher, you can find us on any place you can usually get your podcasts. Thank you for continuing to listen to us. As I said on a previous, the last show we put out, we have broached the fantastic figure of 10,000 downloads. I don't know how that happened.
Woo!
I know.
Congratulations! Yeah.
I know. It's just I know my mum just keeps clicking downloads, and God bless her. Listen, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's always a pleasure to speak to Jamey, especially to have him come back on after the first time he was on. I'm surprised he came back, but it's a delight to have him back on again.
You had to pay me a lot of money to come today, Richard.
And again, Peter, you're a good guy, good mate, and it's good to hear that things are continually onwards and upwards for Inside the Box board games, and I shall be personally looking forward to seeing what the secrets of Charterstone are and what I can uncover. There's only 2 things left to do, as usual. Now, the first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, gentlemen?
Oh, no.
No way.
Definitely not. We'll hide in caves, we'll build up our own little towns, but you won't find us hanging around any of those pointy hat gentlemen with their staffs. And the second thing to do is to say goodbye. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on, but it's a goodbye from Peter.
Goodbye.
And I keep pointing to my left when that's not physically pointing.
This hologram of Jamey Stegmaier.
Like, you know, exactly. And Jamie's like going, I was on his left. What's going on? So it's a goodbye from Peter.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from Jamey.
And a goodbye from Jamie. There you go. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll sixes. Keep an eye out for Newspeak. And have a look out for Charterstone. Two very different games from two very, very brilliant people. But until the next time, goodbye.
Take care.